I wanted to bring you along to the office for a day and share the framework that I put together based on what powerhouse entrepreneurs consciously or unconsciously use to make their dreams a reality. And yes, this works for people in 9-to-5 jobs as well. And while there are vision boards in this process, they are totally optional. Like anything else, they're a tool you can use as you see fit and not a magic wand to make your problems disappear and your dreams come true. So welcome to the CEO 2023 dashboard. This year I spun things up in Notion, but you can use Evernote or a regular notebook, whatever you're going to look at more often. Now I'm going to share my screen so that you can see this dashboard has 3 parts, and these are broken down into your daily routine stuff that once you get set up you will use more often. Then the big picture planning tools are over on the right, and then the bottom half is the more traditional vision board with affirmations, scripting, which we will inject with some neuroscience to make more effective. Now, because we're high value around here, I'm going to start with all the stuff that vision boards tend to skip over, and that is identifying your objectives, running them through the success framework, and then breaking that down into quarterly goals, monthly plans, and then all the way down to your daily routines. So if we start with the first part, this is what people tend to skip over, and that is the messy whiteboarding stage. It's not aesthetically pleasing, and it is not supposed to be. But you can do this at home with sticky notes or using Canva or a dedicated whiteboarding tool like Miro, which is free, whatever works, and I can leave links to those in the description down below. And what you end up with at the end is all of your big objectives, your goals and sub-goals, all organized by project or theme, set against milestones throughout the year. And we get here by kind of brain dumping all of your goals. You just get them out on paper first, and then going through and grouping them into themes or projects, and then plotting those across the year by milestone. And once you do this, you can then work backwards to fill in all of the steps in between. To kind of illustrate this, I'll give one entrepreneur example and one kind of corporate career example. So if you're a business owner and one of your goal themes or one of your projects is to 10x your revenue to $10 million this year, to do that, you might have sub-goals like launch an app, get more clients, launch a course, and you can plot those against milestones that are relevant to your industry. And if you can't think of any or you don't really have any, you can just break this down into quarters. If we were to do a professional kind of career example, the goal theme or the project for the year might be to increase your salary to $250K, with sub goals of, getting an excellent performance review, get a promotion, present in front of the executive team. And these would all be tracked against internal deadlines that would be your milestones. And once you have those anchor points, you can add in smaller steps in between. So now that we have some groundwork, we can go back into Notion and start filling things out. First of which we have is the yearly objectives page. And since we have those from our whiteboard, those are your themes or your projects, we need these set up before we can go into the success framework. Now the framework comes second, and it's the part that really makes a difference and moves the needle. And it is broken down into 4 parts or 4 sections. Part 1 is just defining your major objectives, which is easy, we got that. Part 2 is diagnosing why you haven't met those objectives already. In a hyper-connected world, odds are the reason you haven't achieved something you've dreamed up isn't because there are no instructions on how to do it. And the difference between a regular mindset and a CEO mindset is that this diagnosis always comes down to something internal and something that's within your control. It's really easy to say, the market was bad last year and that's why we didn't hit our revenue goals, and kind of be done with it, which in this case, we're attributing the blame to something external outside of our control. A CEO mindset take on this might have been something like, we need to have diversified revenue streams so that we can still hit our goals in a down market. And aside from blaming external factors, the other major setback that comes up here is mindset, but kind of in a broader sense. If you at your core don't believe that you're the type of person that can run an 8-figure company, or that people like you aren't successful, no amount of planning or strategizing is going to compensate for that. And getting to the root of that limiting core value is not easy. It is not aesthetically pleasing pictures of sunset cocktails. It can take serious work to unravel, but that's why this framework is so effective. It's because it uncovers this faulty wiring. I'm also not saying that things outside of our control don't happen, but as far as strategy and planning goes, hoping bad things don't happen or hoping that your mindset will change with time doesn't get you far. Hope is not a strategy. Moving on to part 3, this is providing evidence to yourself and your inner critic that your objectives are achievable. This is especially important if you are breaking new ground or doing something for the first time, like your first business, your first launch, your first big year, or if you have limiting mindsets around any of the things that we uncovered in part 2. And we don't need a 50-page analysis here. Instead, what is just as effective is to find 5 to 10 people that have achieved what you are striving for in some capacity. These don't have to be a perfect one-to-one for your goals. In fact, I would be worried if you were trying to completely emulate someone else's success, but instead have elements of what you are trying to achieve. After you list the people and what evidence they represent, you can tack on some resources that they might have associated with them, such as social media, books, blogs, interviews, podcasts, anything where they talk about their process and how they do what they do. And then we have part 4, which is where you can outline any additional steps you need to take to fix that faulty wiring that we uncovered in part 2. You may have to go back to your whiteboard and add some more sticky notes or possibly revamp an objective altogether. And if this framework is interesting to you, check out the To Be Magnetic podcast. They talk about this process or a similar type of process, but in more general terms from the lens of manifestation, not specific to business and career. Now at this point, we can go back in to quarterly and monthly pages and start making goals and plans. Personally, I don't tackle the monthly planning until I get to that quarter because things can change so drastically in my business. Okay, going back to the dashboard one last time, we are now ready to tackle the more traditional part of the vision board process, but kind of with a CEO twist. So I broke this section into themes, which are pretty typical of vision boards, with sections like business, health and fitness, finance, relationships, mindset, style, and home. You can combine, add, delete, edit as necessary. And for each of these, you can add a visual that sums up what you want this area of your life to look and feel like, but it's not critical. I put these together in a few minutes, so don't read too much into them. This kind of visual component of the vision boarding process has been shown to give us a dopamine hit, especially when we are feeling low. So they do serve a purpose, they can serve a purpose, which is why I wanted to leave it in here, but it's just not the purpose most people sell you on. Okay, coupled with the vision board are affirmation statements, and these aren't your typical, star sister moonbeam affirmations of I am abundant, I am a creative force, I am worthy, not those kind of affirmations. Because no matter how often you say those type of statements, they won't have any effect on your neural wiring until your subconscious believes that it's true. And this can take a long time. It can take some serious commitment to essentially become delusional, but like in a good way. Instead, an affirmation needs to have 3 parts to be effective. 1, what are you committed to rather than what you want? 2, why it is a must-have for you. And then 3, what action you are taking and when. So for example, just because it's the beginning of the year, we'll use a health and fitness example. This would be, I am committed to losing 20 pounds or whatever health thing here, because I deserve to live a long, healthy life with my significant other and kids, and I am going to do this by working out for 45 minutes every day. And what I like about using Notion for this is you can edit your affirmations all the time. You can tweak them until they are just complete perfection. If you want to learn more about these particular types of affirmations, Hal Elrod describes a similar affirmation style in his book, which I will link below. Structuring affirmations this way also really quickly sifts out goals that are heavily ego-driven, which are more likely to fail, and why I left this part in. I also know people just love affirmations too, so if they help, I wanted to include them. Some people also like to add in scripting here, which is when you write in present tense as if the goal or affirmation you were trying to achieve has already happened. And you do that from a point of view of expressing gratitude for that. Again, this works for some and not for others, but if you want to include it, it would go in this section. Okay, finally we get to the to-do part of the dashboard. I'm not going to go into each of these in too much detail. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. If you're here, you probably know how to fill out each of these. I've seen a lot of people add a habit tracker to this list, and this is a section that you would look at the most to help you track against those monthly, quarterly, and yearly goals. Okay, so that's it. Super simple, easy, nothing to it, to the $10 million a year plan. Let me know how you plan out your year, and until next time.